I think there are many people in the world who are suffering from attempts that are not in the news. I want to help such a person. You would think that a person with this kind of pinned tweet on their profile would be a therapist, mental health professional, or an empath trying to help people with mental health struggles. But what if I told you that this tweet was made by a serial killer who just got executed for murdering 9 people in cold blood within just 3 months? On October 31st, 2017, a group of investigators traced a missing 23-year-old woman to this apartment complex in Zama, Kanagawa. But what they didn't expect to find were the remains of 9 other missing people inside a small studio apartment belonging to a man named Takahiro Shiraishi. 8 of these victims were women, all of whom had met Takahiro on Twitter, were manipulated into coming to his house, and murdered for his sick pleasure. But before he became this deranged, cold-blooded killer, Takahiro was a pimp who worked as a scout to lure women into brothels located in Kabukicho, the biggest red light district in Tokyo. His job was to recruit new sex workers, introduce them to his affluent clients, and take a cut of their payment once the job was done. Sure, it was illegal, but in a place like Japan where prostitution is a massive industry, fueled by both the locals and sex tourists who visit the country looking for an adventure. However, while the job in itself was morally reprehensible, Takahiro was such a massive creep that would constantly prey on women, earning him a reputation both among his fellow scouts, the sex workers in the district, and the locals. And then he lost his job. Left with nothing to do with his life, Takahiro decided to pursue a new career, becoming a serial killer. Compared to the time of suffering, hanging is shorter, but some people are simply afraid of hanging, so I think it's up to each person to choose which one to choose. This was one of the many tweets Takahiro posted on his Twitter account. But while this may look like another depressed Twitter user airing their thoughts out on the internet, these posts were actually bait. Takahiro majorly targeted women with mental health struggles who talked about taking their own lives on Twitter, inviting them to his home, offering to help them die or watch them take their own lives. To convince some of these women, he made a pact, promising to also take his own life. To some of these women, Takahiro acted like a friend, and to others, he presented himself as a spiritual leader here to guide them on their journey to the afterlife. And then in August 2017, Takahiro moved into this apartment complex in Zama, Kanagawa, marking the beginning of his killing spree. For the next 3 months, Takahiro lured a total of 8 women to his house, sexually assaulted them, robbed them, and murdered them. According to him, though, some of these women gave their consent. That is after he successfully manipulated them on Twitter. However, there were other peculiar cases, like one of the victims who got murdered as soon as she told Takahiro she didn't think she wanted to go through with it anymore. While the identities of his victims were made public at the start of the case, the Japanese government decided to make this information private out of respect for the victims' families, so I will not be mentioning the names of these victims. One by one, these victims lost their lives at the hands of this raging lunatic. But then, in September 2017, Takahiro met his final victim. Around October 2017, a man contacted the police to report his missing sister. Days before she disappeared, this Jane Doe, described as a young woman in her 20s, had posted on Twitter about taking her own life, so it didn't take long for Takahiro to find her, promising to help her carry out her plans, and even do it with her if she wanted. Since he'd done this 7 times before, Takahiro knew exactly what to say to convince the victim, and eventually, they agreed to meet at his apartment in Zama. But after the woman mysteriously disappeared, their families also started to worry, especially the woman's brother, who also logged into the account and found the disturbing texts she and Takahiro exchanged. Sensing that something was off, the brother contacted the police, who devised a plan to nab Takahiro. Since he wasn't sure whether Takahiro had taken his sister's life or not, he decided to impersonate her, and for some reason, Takahiro continued the conversation, despite knowing she was dead. Not sure why he did this though, which is pretty weird. A woman identified as Yumi also helped him set up a fake appointment with Takahiro, although this part of the story is still a little blurry due to the lack of detailed details about the case. Using clues from their conversations, the brother was able to narrow down Takahiro's location, and on October 30th, 2017, the police finally showed up at Takahiro's apartment. Just like most serial killers, Takahiro was calm and cooperative when he saw the police, allowing them inside the house. As soon as they entered, the officers saw the woman's bag in the room, confirming that she was indeed there. Now here's the strangest part. When the police asked him about the final victim, he just simply pointed to a freezer in the corner and said, "She's there," in such a cold-blooded manner that would make anyone shiver. He probably knew his time was up, so there was no point in lying anymore. However, when the officers started searching around the house, what they found was even more disturbing. 3 cooler boxes and 5 large storage boxes, all filled with bones of his 9 victims. He'd dismembered them, skinned them, dumped the remains in the trash can, and kept the bones so he wouldn't get caught. To cover up the smell of rotting flesh, Takahiro filled the storage boxes and coolers with kitty litter. CCTV footage also showed the missing woman walking with Takahiro on October 23, 2017, and to make the case even easier, Takahiro confessed to everything. However, while Takehiro's lawyers initially tried to get a lesser charge based on the fact that most of the victims gave their consent, this plan completely fell apart when Shiraishi was called to the stand. Because not only did he reveal that some of the victims withdrew their consent, he also stated that he wasn't planning to take his own life and was only motivated by money and the desire for sex. This wasn't a cult thing. He wasn't even suicidal himself. Takahiro was just an unhinged man who found sick pleasure in preying on women with mental health struggles, and he loved it. The saddest part, Takahiro never really apologized. As a matter of fact, he mentioned that he wouldn't feel any sort of remorse or regret if he was never caught. On the 1st of October 2020, Takahiro pleaded guilty to 9 murder charges, and by January 2021, his death sentence was finalized. On June 27, 2025, Takahiro Shiraishi, also known as the Twitter Killer, was executed at the Tokyo detention house. His oldest victim was 26, and the youngest was 15.